I'm Tony Lama.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday. And indeed it is. It is hard to believe, but we are in the last Friday of March, March 29th. And we've been coming at you here from the Scottsdale Air Park at Money Radio Studios for now 6 years. And if you're just tuning in, our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do we do that? We do that by bringing extraordinary guests to the show. And I want to get right into this because I've got one of those extraordinary guests here on the show. And I think she's an all-time frequent guest. I went back into the archives, and Maryglenn Boals has been here on the show with us. This will be number six times. And she was one of my first guests back when we started. And it's so great to have you here. Maryglenn Boals, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bob. It's always a pleasure.
And it is the firm, just so everyone knows, it's M.G. Boals and Associates, and they are long-term care specialists. And you know, Maryglenn, your story is amazing, and for our listeners who may not have heard the 5 previous shows, and it's been 2 years since you've last been on, so, you know, I've been remiss not having you on. I've missed having you on, but you have taken an incredible journey into the older adult world that led you to this journey in helping people afford care through your company. And I would love for you to take us a little bit through that journey.
It's a little frightening when I step back and I say the words, well, I've been doing this professionally for 34 years now, this field of aging and different aspects of it. But I started out with degrees in public health and gerontology and then moved into the nursing home care. So I really worked on the care side, worked in hospital systems where I ran the senior programming and insurance carriers that had senior products out there, worked with those. And then about 12 years ago, I said, how do I get on the other side of this conversation? How do I get people more prepared so that if they do need care as they're getting older, how do they pay for that? How, maybe looking at their current finances, what they might be able to do. Can they pay privately? Do they need to look at any types of products? And within that, what products would make sense? Or if they really don't have any means, how to navigate Arizona's Medicaid system, the All-Tex system, what those might be. Because even if that is the reality, it's best to know what that looks like, how to navigate it, and to make it all go a lot more smoothly for them.
What's interesting is that we do this professionally, and our listening audience knows my family, and if you're just hearing it for the first time, we own a home care company. We're in our 25th year. We've been doing that a long time here in the Valley, enabling so many of the older adults that live here to be able to age successfully in place. And I lead up to this because you've been doing this professionally for 34 years. And not too long ago, you had to deal with your own family members. And it's interesting because as prepared as you may be, because you help people through this journey, you're not maybe so necessarily prepared when it happens to you.
Exactly. It changes in a whole different dimension when suddenly you are and I hate to use the term, but it's a great way to say it, parenting your parent. You have to make some of those decisions that are best for their finances, best for their care. Maybe whatever's going on with them is not enabling them to do that, whether that's a slow decline of cognition or whether it's something that happens suddenly. But I think that's a reality. And I always tell people now, when you cross that line, it's almost like you can never go back.
Right. Well,
there was a couple little comments that came from my parent kind of looking at me going, well, ask her. She's the boss now. But, you work through it and just say, I'm helping you. I'm suggesting, my ultimate goal is always to make sure, you have the best and are taken care of in the best way. So getting through that, though, is difficult.
And, I think if you keep reminding them that your advice, your counsel is coming from a good place. It's coming from the heart, and it's coming from a place of love. And it is a labor of love. I mean, that's, and you're not there trying to be the bad guy. You're not trying to take their independence away. But, you need to address this mom or you need to address this dad because it is imperative for your safety and your health.
And I'm sure you can relate to the other part. We have people seek us out. We are considered experts in our field. People often pay money for our advice, and we have parents that we are still that small child. They're not realizing what we could add to this conversation for them. But you touch on a great point, that emotional toil. Watching that person as they once were, watching them diminish into a different capacity. Both of us are seeing that with our parents. I know with your dad, there's been some changes. And how's he doing?
He's doing much better. And let's give a big shout out to Noodles. He's been here on the show.
Noodles.
He's been on the show a couple times, and I'm proud to say this. I know that he wouldn't. He'd be okay with me talking about it. You've actually helped him through the journey of tapping into his long-term care benefits, and that in of itself is so challenging. When we really look at our aging population, we're looking at us aging at such a rapid rate. I mean, we're talking about right now in 2020, we'll have about 54 million Americans that'll be 65 and older. And if you just fast forward 30 years, that's going to almost double. It's about 88 million. And then you look at 85 and older. There's 7 million right now. Or 2020, they expect it to be 7 million. Fast forward 30 years to 2050, they're expecting there to be close to 20 million 85-year-olds.
It's fascinating, the percentage growth that we're seeing in that, what we call the old, the 85-plus population, how that is exponentially growing compared to the other groups. And one of the things that's happening in that is everyone was worried about the baby boomers. I mean, my whole career, that's all we've talked about is this big bubble, these baby boomers moving through. But right now, there was recently an article, and we may have to come back to that.
No, we got a little time.
We're good?
Yeah, we got about a minute.
Anyway, it talked about that some of these baby boomers are dipping into their own retirement savings to pay for their 85-plus-year-old parents. Some of those numbers are fascinating. It's like a third of them. And the numbers of how much they are, contributing, it's between, $1,000 to $2,999 a month. That's about a third of people. This was a T. Rowe Price did a survey, and 23% of those folks were spending between $3,000 to almost $5,000 contributing for their parents. What that means is that baby boomers going to have even less out of their own retirement when they get to that 85 plus.
We're up against a break, and I want to come back and talk a little bit more about that. And Maryglenn was just at a long-term care conference in Chicago.
Yes. The Intercompany Long-Term Care.
You've been listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're down one segment. We got 3 more. Stick around.
Are you sick and tired of hearing, don't buy an annuity until you've spoken to the so-called experts? If so, call 800-957-5604, extension 200, to learn the concept of a principal-protected, low-cost, new generation annuity and the various options. Listen to Secured Financial Solutions every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. on this station to prevent a derailed retirement and from purchasing the wrong annuity, especially the high-risk, high-fee variable annuity and complex proprietary index annuities. Secured Financial Financial Solutions will help you understand the difference between true stated guarantees and non-guaranteed returns. Call 800-957-5604, extension 200, and visit dreamretire.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, and Registered Investment Advisor. VCM and Secured Financial Solutions, LLC are independent of each other. Annuities are insurance products, backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insuring insurance company. Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
Here's an important message from the Arizona Corporation Commission's Securities Division, a state agency that enforces our state's investment laws to protect Arizona investors. Grow your money wisely. Just about every investment that offers a big return involves just as big a risk. If you're offered an investment that is supposed to be no to low risk and guarantees a big return on your money, ask and check before you invest. Contact our investigator on duty by email at info@azinvestor.gov or by telephone at 602-542-0662. Again, that number is 602-542-0662. So remember, until money grows on trees, ask and check before you invest. For more information about wise investing, visit azinvestor.gov. This message has been brought to you by the Arizona Corporation Commission's Securities Division, funded by a grant by the Investor Protection Trust.
Dell Small Business Technology Advisors know there's nothing small about your business. They provide one-on-one partnership and reliable Dell PCS and Intel Core processors to get business done. Call 877-BUY-DELL.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth. We're on segment number 2, and if you're just tuning in, I got Maryglenn Boals here in the studio. She is a long-term care specialist. She's got a great company called MG Boals and Associates. She is a 5-time previous appearance guest, and she is now number 6, and it's really great having you here in the studio. And you know, if you missed our first segment, you can catch it right up on our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button, third button down's radio show. You can catch the first segment of this show. You can catch about 280 others that we've brought to you for the last 6 years. So, Maryglenn, we were talking numbers before, and you went to this conference in Chicago where there were 1,100 people there to talk about the dimensions of long-term care insurance. Agents, carriers, actuaries, ancillary companies, like third-party underwriting interviewers, neurologists, and others. You know, I think people are finally realizing, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to be paying for the care? And they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And what I want to try to do with these next 3 segments is really help our listening audience try to prepare for this, because they talk about a tsunami. It's here. The crest is already kind of past us, and we're catching the back end of that wave.
Sadly, it can be passed for some people, because in this type of insurance products and planning, we still medically underwrite. So that's a big consideration. But back to the issue on the conference, aside from the extremely cold spell that hit during my time there, which was quite a little shock, it's fascinating because everyone is so interested in long-term care that attends this conference, and we're all coming at it from so many different disciplines. You know, the neurologists are talking about the numbers and how many are having caregivers and how many, caregivers are impacted that are caring for people with dementia. And the carriers are trying to figure out, how can we create product that makes sense from an actuarial standpoint, that gives benefits to people that make sense? You know, what can be paid for? What is an insurable risk? And the dialogue that goes on between all of them, it's kind of fun for someone who's an agent in this that sells products to then sit in with an actuary and to how they think and they view these things. So really great that it's so interdisciplinary. It's one of the great big conferences that's left out there. And it's interesting because I get people asking me, is long-term care still even around? I heard it's like dead and nobody's doing it anymore. And it's like, no, we're still doing it. It's just different. It's like many of the insurance things. Like we saw this in disability insurance for years. Hundreds of companies scaling down, scaling down, scaling down. That happened in long-term care too. We also realized this is a product that has an incredibly long tail on it. So what that tail means is when you purchase it, you may not use it for 30 years. So it's really hard to understand that. Now, even when I get then maybe to the 30-year mark, we have another tail of once I maybe go on claim, how long is my care need going to be? And that is the $1 million question.
Right.
Nobody knows that. And so, a lot of the carriers in trying to kind of quantify some of that risk and contain it a bit for themselves are saying, we will only insure up to X number of years. That means once you went on a claim needing care, we will only provide those benefits for so much time. It is much more rare to find unlimited benefits. There is one carrier. But what we've seen shift is that the products are now more life long-term care hybrids, or if you've come late to the dance, maybe the health isn't so great, we're a little older, there are annuity long-term care products. But then you've really got to dig deep to figure out of those which has the little details inside of it that makes the best sense for you. Some are very, I like to think of them as more front-loaded. They're heavy on the amount you're going to put into the product, but you get very rich benefits. Others take a stance of maybe we'll take a little less money, but you're going to have a larger portion of that you kind of co-insure once you start to have a need.
Well, it's interesting. In full disclosure to the listening audience, I own long-term care insurance, and Maryglenn and I have known one another ever since she got into this space 12 years ago. And I was fortuitous to buy long-term care insurance 16 years ago. And I only did that because I realized how much home care costs. And I looked at my savings and bank account and my investments, and I was like, I probably could afford care for maybe 3 or 4 months, and then I'm out of money, and I'm going to have to liquidate assets to pay for it. So I was very, let's put it this way, I saw the window, I grabbed it, bought a product that was pretty much a Cadillac or Rolls-Royce at the time. The minute I bought it, they didn't offer it anymore. And actually, 5 years after I bought the product from this insurance company stopped selling this product. And it's interesting because I serve on the Governor's Advisory Council on Aging, and I've been doing that now for about 3.5 years. And every year they come in to talk about long-term care insurance, and the list keeps dwindling down, down, down. Now, if you're listening in and you have bought long-term care insurance from a carrier that's no longer in business or no longer offering the product, rest assured the Department of Insurance will make sure that that benefit is still there for you.
And I'm glad you clarified that, because there's a big difference between not doing business and I'm not selling product. What we saw is we had to kind of minimize some of the drain. We had to kind of slow things. So you saw many carriers step out of that arena. They're not saying they won't ever come back. They're trying to kind of regroup and figure out what might that product look like. There's a lot of talk of more co-insurance portions, maybe not offering as much through insurance, and the person buying the product has to come up with more, because it used to be you would say, how much is the cost of care? Well, we want that much per day right now, and we want to put 5% compound inflation on it, and we want lifetime benefits. And gosh, customer, that's probably only about $1,000 a year premium. Wow. No. When you realize the probability of someone needing long-term care is almost 1 in 2, that you'll need it at some point in your life. Now, where the statistics get a little more iffy is how long are you going to need it?
Right.
It's the unknown portion of that question. It's the if it went on for a long time, what does that look like in my life, in my family's life? And what, too, we're talking about this all about being aging, but what if something happens to someone when they're younger? I have people who, when I first got into this, are now going on claims. Some of these are dementia claims. These are not people that are older. They are living a long time with dementia. And what people don't understand is that is a long life cycle of what those care needs are, how they evolve, maybe going from adult daycare to then maybe home care to then assisted living to then probably skilled nursing and hospice. It's a journey.
It could be 20 years. It could be 7 years. It could be just a couple years. And, I've seen, with The frontal lobe dementia, FTD, I've seen people pass in just a little more than a year. I mean, so it really, really depends.
And that's what people need to understand, too, is we use these terms and we think that people understand. You know, the word dementia is kind of like an umbrella. And underneath that, we have all of these different types. So your Alzheimer's, your Lewy body, your frontal lobe, you know, so many of these fall under that. And one of the speakers, like I said, was a neurologist. She was from Rush University, and she was talking about that in so many of the brains that were said to be Alzheimer's, when they actually did the autopsy, they were definitively Alzheimer's about a third of the time. That it's still very hard to differentiate what they are. A lot of it has to do with how many neurologists are out there doing the assessments, what some of the tests are, and still how much we don't know about this disease.
Right. And the one thing we do know is more and more people are getting it.
More and more people are aging. We're all living longer.
And we're living longer, and it's costing our economy and our communities and our society just millions and soon to be billions of dollars a year.
And when you talk about the care, you know, I say, what are the things that kind of keep me up at night? I can think about the big global industry, but then I think about my own mother. My own mother's been on a journey with dementia for, I would say, probably I kind of picked up on it about 9 years ago. She has been in some type of care or supervisory situation for over 4 years. We're just getting ready now to possibly shift into skilled nursing. And the number they're telling me is $7,740 a month.
7,740
a month.
Wow.
And that is to be paid privately. You know, we're really fortunate that she's in a very nice facility, but we're not talking luxury. We're talking middle of Iowa, but it's kind of one of the nicer ones that you'd feel comfortable having your loved one in.
So we're talking about $90,000 a year.
Absolutely.
And that is with after-tax dollars. That's not pre-tax. I mean, you have to use after-tax dollars. Wow.
Yeah.
That keeps you up at night.
So, you know, you're figuring out how do you piece together $77.40 every month, you know, what comes in from her pensions, my dad's pensions, Social Security, applying for VA benefits. That's a whole nother adventure. Because even as much as I know about this, we still made mistakes. There were circles that should have been on lines, and the person at the VA office didn't catch that. So we got booted back out. We got set back several more months again. You know, that process alone has been months and months to apply for the aid and attendance.
One of the things you shared with me before we started our show, and I want to conclude with it, we have about a minute left here, is the baby boomer generation, which you and I are. And we're taking care of the either World War II generation or the silent generation right now. And my question to you, and I think you see it, is baby boomers are stuck with the 7740, and they're using their own retirement benefits to take care of their parents. You talked about
I'm going to be paying the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
because it's needed. We want to keep her there, and if she were to go on Medicaid at this point, and many of these facilities have this rule. This is not uncommon. They want you to, for at least 2, sometimes 3 years, show that you can pay privately. Then they might let you roll on to Medicaid.
Wow. That's just incredible.
But
mind-boggling.
The math, though, they will tell you they are losing $3,000 a month on every person that they allow to be on Medicaid based on what their true costs are and what they get reimbursed.
And I believe that. I definitely believe that.
We have a problem coming.
Well, I'll tell you what, Randy's doing a great job. He's got Bruce in between the segments and taking us out here at halftime. It's halftime here at Health Futures. You've been listening to Bob Roth and Maryglenn Boals. Stick around for the second half. We're talking long-term care insurance. We'll be...
As we reach the bottom of the hour, we pause for a look at the world's news. Then we're back with Money Talk. We're Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM.
Stopped payment to Honduras, to Guatemala, and to El Salvador.
President Trump is angry about a surge on the southern border.
They set up these caravans. In many cases, they put their worst people in the caravan. They're not going to put their best in. They get rid of their problems, and they march up here. And they're coming into their country. We're not letting them in our country.
Trump says unless Mexico blocks illegals from the southern border, he may close the border as soon as next week. The Attorney General is telling Congress to expect a cleansed version of the Mueller report. Here's correspondent Laura Jarrett.
Bill Barr saying in this letter, April, if not sooner. And he also adds here that the president has publicly stated he intends to defer to me, and accordingly, there are no plans to submit the report to the White House for a privileged review. So
Barr is also offering to testify before Congress about the report. The Dow is up about 160 points. I'm Mike Moss.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry's starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover. All for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter 6611 at checkout. That's harrys.com, code 6611. Enjoy.
When you invest, what's your pleasure? A good combination of approaches sometimes works out best. The how-to manual is right here every day on Money Radio.
Hi, I'm certified financial planner Nancy Fleming, and did you know a fellow woman named Elizabeth Maggie created the Landlord's Game to help her friends feel the unfairness of land grabbing while having fun? Like most women, we have a more encompassing attitude about our world. We approach our financial well-being as a means to an end. We ask more questions. We match our investment choices closely with our goals. That's how I do it. If that's how you do it, then accept this invitation for my complimentary retirement roadmap by calling 480-632-8770. Elizabeth's game was changed to Monopoly. Keep your game true by calling me, Nancy Fleming, at 480-632-8770 or text the word RETIRE to 33222. That's the word RETIRE to 33222.
Fleming Financial Services, Inc. is a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Arizona and in other jurisdictions where exempt registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training.
Hi, this is Ken with Online Trading Academy Phoenix. For a fresh take on the news and your money, check out The Right Side of the Trade, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. and Saturdays at noon on Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM. To understand how the markets really work, come to a free Online Trading Academy half-day class. For free tickets, text OTA, as in Online Trading Academy, to 31996. Text OTA, as in Online Trading Academy, to 31996 now.
Get ready for Top Biz AZ, Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. here on Money Radio. I'm your host, Heidi Fogelsong, along with Kim Bankafear, inviting you to join us every week as we showcase some of the best and the brightest in our state. We'll meet fascinating innovators, be inspired by visionaries, get motivated to go for it from those trailblazers and entrepreneurs, all dynamic business leaders who stand out from the rest. So tune in to Top Biz AZ, Saturday mornings at 9, right here on Money Radio.
Dell Small Business Technology Advisors know there's nothing small about your business. They provide one-on-one partnership and reliable Dell PCS and Intel Core processors to get business done. Call 877-BUY-DELL.
With your money now. Well, as trading enters the final hour on Wall Street, stocks remain higher. The Dow up over 180 points. Now, the strength on Wall Street reflects some continued optimism about ongoing talks between the U.S. and China over trade. However, some concerns about the economic outlook has limited the upside as traders are taking in a mixed batch of economic data this Friday. Taking a look at worldwide markets, stocks in Asia finished higher across the board Friday as investors were a bit hopeful that the U.S. and China would reach a deal to end the trade war, and an increase in U.S. bonds also helped to drive stocks higher. In Europe, the markets also closed a bit higher, investors taking in some economic data from the region, and also some news about the defeat of British Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal. And in the cryptocurrency market, Bitcoin has ended the week on a high note, jumping to a 5-week high of just over $4,000. It lost $100 Monday, but continued to trend upward. And in the past 24 hours alone, Bitcoin is up over $67. And that is your money now.
Thinking about life insurance? What if you could make one free phone call and learn your best price from nearly a dozen highly rated, price-competitive companies? Well, that's exactly what happens when you call SelectQuote Life. For example, George is 40. He was getting sky-high quotes from other companies because he takes meds to control his blood pressure. But when I shopped around, I found him a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $25 a month. I'm SelectQuote agent Dan Savino. And believe me, if SelectQuote isn't shopping for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 800-244-6060. That's 800-244-6060. 800-244-6060. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Your price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and you're listening to Health Futures, coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park Studios, Money Radio 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and on the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. And if you're just tuning in, I've got Maryglenn Boals, who is now a 6-time guest in over 280 shows that we put on, and she runs a company called MG Boals and Associates, and they are long-term care specialists and really trying to help their customers and our community as a whole be able to be prepared for whatever may come your way relative to long-term care needs. And we have an example. We talked about Noodles, my dad, and he had the foresight 16 years ago to buy a policy. And I will tell you, my dad has dealt with many health challenges, and he had one carrier that would underwrite him, and that carrier underwrote him. And Maryglenn is not only a great friend, but she's a professional in this field. And Maryglenn, you met with Noodles and his wife Maddie probably, close to 2 years ago?
Probably. It's been about that long now. They were incredibly proactive. Sometimes people have purchased long-term care a good deal in the past, and they've kind of forgotten what they bought. It gets stuck in a drawer, and then you start to wonder, is it relevant to today? Or what happens is a rate increase letter comes in the mail. And what you want to do is not just have a knee-jerk reaction to things like that. And we can talk about rate increases in a bit. But your dad, Noodles, he and Maddie met with me to kind of say, what have we got? How do we use it? What's the best way? And that's one of the things that we talk about is the coaching. You understand that the insurance world has one language. What people might say on the other end might be a little bit different. I want to make sure they're using the right words. When they did have the care need come up, I very quickly talked with them about, here's what you're going to need to do, here's who you call, this is about how long you're going to need, this is the things they're going to ask you. Because my feeling is what we need to do as agents is support the person who is dealing with a loved one who's sick and possibly going on claim right now, because you want to be timely about getting that claim in. They're reasonable, understanding some situations, but there is a timeliness to it. And you want to reach out as soon as possible because many people have an elimination period. And you want to get through those.
Explain what that is.
An elimination period.
Because what people in the healthcare field, they know what elimination is, and it's not that kind of elimination.
No.
So what in the heck is elimination period? And let me say this, when you get rate increases, a lot of insurance companies will tell you, hey, if you want to not take this rate increase or take a smaller rate increase, we can move and push your elimination days out. So I would love for you to take our listening audience through this.
Elimination days are a bit like when you think about your car insurance and you have a deductible. But it's expressed, your deductible is usually expressed in dollars. An elimination period is saying how many days of care are you willing to co-insure before the insurance policy starts to pay. So it's not uncommon to see things, it might be 30, 60, 90, I've even seen some 120s. Those are fairly typical. Within then an elimination period, you really need to understand, do I have service days or calendar days? That's a big difference.
It is a big difference.
Because a calendar day means the calendar day just has to pass, and a lot of them have what they call a 1 in 7 count, meaning if you even had service from a provider, and this is really important if you start with HomeCare, so I know you're very familiar with this, Bob, but if you even have services one day, we will count that as if you had it for 7, because sometimes in the beginning, people don't need care every single day all the time. They might just want the care provider to come in on alternate days, maybe the days that they've designated that they'd really like to have a shower and things that they just get a little more nervous about being alone with, or the spouse isn't able to handle that and they're worried about falls. But a service day says we count the day a service happened, that service was the threshold of your house was crossed, that someone came and delivered a service. So what you can see is that in a month, we might have only had services one day a week, but a calendar day counting company, elimination, would count that as the whole month. Someone who has a service day, they would say, gosh, you've gone the whole month and you've only had 4 days of service.
Which one do you see more frequently?
You see a bit of both. When I'm building them, I really tend to look for a calendar count.
Of course.
And if not, if you have a service count, we want to really understand from the carrier how many days of, or how many hours of service are required at a minimum.
Right. Is it 4 hours a day or 2 hours a day?
And it might just be what is really needed for the circumstances. Now, the next side of that is the question you're going to ask, or that you're going to tell someone, well, we have a minimum of how many hours when we go out. What is your minimum if somebody's coming out for service?
It's 4 hours.
Yeah.
We have to make it worth our caregivers' time. I mean, I could do less, and we have done less, but we have to charge more.
Right.
Because that may be the only 2 or 3 hours that caregiver gets of work that day. And, we need to keep them employed.
But those
keep them happy.
Those are questions that, someone who is shopping for a home care agency needs to really understand. And I would get really nervous if someone says, oh, we can run out and do an hour.
Yeah.
You and I know the math doesn't work on that. And how long is that going to last?
And what kind of caregiver are you going to get for an hour?
Exactly. So lots to really understand there. But kind of back to the whole conversation, they were so proactive and wanted to understand. So having a care need more recently, your dad and Maddie were able to kind of know a little more fresh in their minds what they have. It's not uncommon for me to do this for folks. I charge an hourly fee for that. We go through the policy, often with highlighters and pens, pointing out things that may become really important. If we look at the language in the contract and we have questions, we usually call the carrier and do a 3-way call right there to say, hey, when you say this, what are you really meaning? Can you define that for us? Because the devil is in the details with some of these contracts, and you really want to understand them. Some of the older contracts have, I would say, looser or more unusual language. They've really tightened it up and become a lot more uniform as to what I've seen in more recent years.
Well, I am here to give you a plug, a testimonial for having my dad and Maddie be able to reach out to you to really understand what they had, because Dad went on claims. Dad went on claims in the month of February, and he had met with you less than 2 years earlier and understood the product that he had, and you had already interfaced with his carrier to really understand what he had. So, to give you a big plug, mgboals.com, mgboals.com, or call her at 602-418-5069, her being Maryglenn Boals, because you really should understand the product that you have so that you can care for your loved one, or you can have those benefits available to you. We're down 3 segments. We got 1 more to go, Maryglenn. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Are you sick and tired of hearing, don't buy an annuity until you've spoken to the so-called experts? If so, call 800-957-5604, extension 200, to learn the concept of a principal-protected, low-cost, new generation annuity and the various options. Listen to Secured Financial Solutions every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. on this station to prevent a derailed retirement and from purchasing the wrong annuity, especially the high-risk, high-fee variable annuity and complex proprietary index annuities. Secured Financial Solutions will help you understand the difference between true stated guarantees and non-guaranteed returns. Call 800-957-5604, extension 200, and visit dreamretire.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, and Registered Investment Advisor. VCM and Secured Financial Solutions, LLC are independent of each other. Annuities are insurance products, backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insuring insurance company. Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
Here's an important message from the Arizona Corporation Commission's Securities Division, a state agency that enforces our state's investment laws to protect Arizona investors. Grow your money wisely. Just about every investment that offers a big return involves just as big a risk. If you're offered an investment that is supposed to be no to low risk and guarantees a big return on your money, ask and check before you invest. Contact our investigator on duty by email at info@azinvestor.gov or by telephone at 602-542-0662. Again, that number is 602-542-0662. So remember, until money grows on trees, ask and check before you invest. For more information about wise investing, visit azinvestor.gov. This message has been brought to you by the Arizona Corporation Commission's Securities Division, funded by a grant by the Investor Protection Trust. The time has come to give the old way to buy a car the boot. With Carvana, you can skip the dealership and buy your next car online from the comfort of your home or on the go. Choose the new way to buy a car by visiting Carvana.com.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and you're just tuning in. I got Maryglenn Boals here in the studio. We're talking long-term care and how we're going to pay for it. And I will tell you, we had a little bit of lover boy bringing us in, working for the weekend, Cowbell Friday. Maryglenn, we were talking about being prepared, and long-term care costs a lot of money. And I can't make this more clear to our listening audience. And here we are on Money Radio, in Money Radio Studios. The formats are all about financials and investments, and really the best investment you can make is in yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And being prepared. I mean, you know that old adage, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. You really need to put a plan together.
You do. And what fascinates me is one of the questions that I get asked, and it floats around out there in the financial world all the time. At what point could I self-insure?
Right.
And I think, I tell people there is no magic number. I really don't think there's a number, because I think there's circumstances around everything. So you're incredibly, incredibly wealthy, and you could pay for all this yourself, but who's going to monitor and structure and make sure you maybe have the right levels of care? Are you hiring another team? Okay, now we're digging into what I call long-term care planning. We're going to really build a plan. But a long-term care policy might take some of that risk off the other dollars, because you might need to be paying for other things. And it creates some structure, because a long-term care company is also going to be watching for, are you at the right level of care for what's going on with you? There's a lot of third-party assessments that are being done. You send a lot of documentation to verify what, home care you're providing to people.
And that's something we do. That's one of the benefits that you utilize a home care agency like Cypress HomeCare. We will submit all the paperwork for you. We'll do all the administrative details. We'll send that to the carrier. We'll send you a copy of what we've sent. And you can match it up to see if you're getting paid dollar for dollar. If you need us to do some resubmittals, we do that for you as well. So we take that headache away from you.
And the carriers actually like some of that. And what it's called is assignment of benefits, that you can then sign it over and they know they can just mail the checks to you. You're still mailing in the billings and that, but they can make the checks directly back to you, because sometimes, by this time, maybe you're in your late 80s, your spouse, are they able to handle some of these things? There's usually just a lot going on. So they are perfectly fine with if you want to do that and allow the payments to go there. It saves you a trip to the bank, writing the check, getting it mailed back over. So that's something that the carriers are very comfortable with. They do want to look for companies that are up to date on their licensures or what their standards are. Have they worked with them before? They are very concerned about who is providing the care. They're not just going to allow you to something that's kind of this no-name industry, and many of them will not allow you to use people that aren't coming through an agency like
Right.
Cypress.
Right. A contractor, maybe
Right.
a 1099 worker.
Right, like on these care.com where people hire themselves
Oh,
out.
gosh.
Oh, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah,
To have
that is a whole
conversation.
nother show. There was a big expose that came out a couple weeks ago about some bad stuff that happened on
And that's what I'm saying. Some of those things are built into a policy that even if I had a lot of money, do I want to make sure I have these little buffers, these little gatekeepers that are going to kind of keep eyes on things? And my feeling is, too, do you want to kind of hoard your money now to make sure you have plenty later, or buy a policy, let's shift some of that over to another bucket, make sure we've got coverage when we need it, and go live life now. Because when we're approaching 85, we may not be doing quite as much as we were when we're in our 50s.
No doubt. As we get ready to wind down this show, I think a lot of people, and we talked about it in the first segment, think that, I missed it. I missed the opportunity to buy long-term care insurance. I should have done it 20 years ago, 15 years ago. There's really, makes no sense for me to do it because the product is just so darn expensive. As you said before, you really can't buy a true long-term care insurance policy. You can do a blend with a life insurance, or you can do an annuity type program. So I really want you to touch on that, because I want to leave that lasting thought with our listening audience that it's still not too late.
Right. And, if you're kind of in that 65-ish age, one of the things you really want to look at is, do you have other cash value life insurance? Because this may be the right time for us to convert it through a 1035 exchange so that there will be no tax consequence on that, and turn it into a life long-term care product. Now, you have to really look at this saying, I'm now shifting from a place where I need a lot of life insurance, I need long-term care protection, because the benefits will not be as same as if it was a pure life policy. Now we are blending it. So it's going to dilute the life benefits, but it gives us the richness on the long-term care side. If we're possibly older, have other health things going on, this is where we now look at our pool of assets and say, should we sliver off a little piece of that to put into an annuity long-term care? So some of those can be done to ages, much further out, and a lot easier underwriting, because you're self-insuring that first piece by giving them that first bit of money.
And I think more importantly, it's really, I go back to the plan. I mean, I think about this format, Money Radio. Most of the people that are listening in are pretty sophisticated. They're watching their investments, and it's time, if you haven't done this, to sit down with your professionals, sit down with your attorneys, sit down with your CPAs, and really map out a plan, because you don't want to use your dollars, the dollars that you've worked really hard in, depleting the cash that you have, and then having to really either deplete other assets, or, as we talked before, having baby boomers cash in on their retirement to care for you.
Well, and interestingly enough, have the conversation with your partner or spouse.
Right.
Or if you don't have either of those, have it with your children so they know. If a lot of people go, oh, I got a plan for that, but maybe the wife's never been involved in the financial planner conversations.
Right.
Things like that, where that communication hasn't happened, because women view long-term care very differently. Men, they know it's not going to happen to them.
Right.
They hear the number 1 and 2, it's the other guy. It's not me. A woman hears it and she goes, that's 50-50. It's very likely it's going to be me. So we have I think by the genders, we have very different opinions on that. So it's worth it for anybody. Everyone deserves a long-term care conversation to really understand what's out there, what's your situation, and what might the horizon look like.
No, and I can't emphasize that enough, is having that conversation and really, really sitting down and talking about this type of stuff and really talking about other advanced directive type of things. We're not invincible, and we need to have those conversations today.
And I think people, as they get into their 50s, kind of start realizing that. We start to see a couple of gray hairs, and we realize, that is happening to me.
A couple gray hairs?
You got a couple.
Yeah, I got a lot. I got a couple of black hairs.
I got a guy that can do.
Yeah, you do, but I'm not doing that.
Okay.
I like that the crown of silver on top. So we're all good in that area. So Maryglenn, as we wrap up our show, you went to this conference. I would like you over the next couple minutes just leave some lasting impressions on where you see things here going forward as it relates to long-term care. What do you project in the future? I mean, we know that we're a graying society, and we know that as a result, we're going to need care.
I think this is the big conversation that everyone's avoiding. We talk a lot about what's happening to the funding with Medicare and Social Security and those things, but it's also going to impact Medicaid, which is a state and federal program. The numbers that are going to be coming and arriving at the ages and needing care are just bigger than we've ever imagined. So many of the earlier generations were incredible savers. They went through that depression.
They did.
Tons of money put away.
The World War II generation.
They're saving the tinfoil.
Yes.
All that. They actually were fairly well prepared. They were able to pay their bills. Percentage-wise, when I was back in the nursing home business, you saw a small percentage of people on Altex and Medicaid. Now, that number, that saturation is growing and growing. And I don't know what's going to change some of that conversation. Will we start looking at, can people tap into 401k money, life insurance money, taking advances, but somehow getting that tax-free? Would things like that help our generation, the baby boomers, maybe finance things? We've got to think about this more creatively, and we've got to stop making it at all political, because I think it's our aging. It's our aging as a country. It's how we care for our elders. It speaks strongly to who we are as a people. And
I think that's how society will measure us, is how we treat our elderly and our infirmed. And I will leave with this. The baby boomer generation didn't save like the silence in the World War II generation. So we need to really be cognizant of how we utilize whatever dollars we have to care for us and our loved ones going forward. Maryglenn, it's great having you on the show.
Thanks so much, Bob. And
I feel like we just scratched the surface. We have so much more to talk about. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. Thank you again, Maryglenn.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bob.
You got it.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress HomeCare Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit CypressHomeCare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.
Hey fans, this is Arizona Coyotes captain Oliver Ekman-Larsson. The team and I just wanted to thank you for your support in the stands and in the community. It means everything to us. Thank you for being part of our pack.
The playoff race is heating up as the Arizona Coyotes take on the Winnipeg Jets on Saturday, April 6th. And we need you to join our pack because every game matters. For tickets, call 480-563-PUCK or visit ArizonaCoyotes.com.
Engineers have come up with some exciting technology. For example, the off-road industry now has the world's first intelligent suspension system. Found on the Polaris RZR XP Turbo EPS Dynamics Edition, it's smart enough to monitor critical driver and vehicle inputs, continuously adjust each individual shock on the fly, and provide both a plush ride and high performance. A 7-inch display indicates the suspension status so riders have real-time control. More about off-road vehicles is at Polaris.com.
The station that talks about your money. Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM is